And our mission today is simple. We're going to take this massive, intimidating stack of legal requirements and sort it into 5 clear, understandable piles. We're going to deconstruct the deal.
And we should clarify, for anyone listening who's in the industry, we're looking specifically at the contract documents required for a FIDIC Red Book project. The Red Book is, the standard for when the design is done by the employer.
The client.
The client, right? And the building is done by the contractor.
Right. And there's a third character in this movie too, right? The engineer.
A crucial role. In the FIDIC world, the engineer isn't just the person doing the math, they're the administrator. They sort of stand between the client and the contractor to make sure the rules are actually followed.
So they're the referee?
The referee, yeah. They certify payments, they judge quality.
Okay, so we have the referee, the client, and the builder. And to keep this from feeling like a law lecture, I think your analogy of the docs is the best way to visualize this.
Yes, the box. So don't think of it as a book. Think of it as a physical archive box that you, the client, hand over. And inside that box, there are 5 specific folders. If you understand what's in those 5 folders, you pretty much understand the whole project.
It's a solid framework, so let's just lay them out on the table. What are the 5 folders?
Okay, in order. Folder 1 is the specification.
Got it.
Folder 2 is the drawings. Folder 3 is the schedules. Folder 4 is the contractor's proposal.
And the last one.
And finally, folder 5 is the other documents.
Simple enough. Let's crack open that first folder, the specification. To me, this just sounds like the what are we building section.
It is the verbal description, yes, the what, but it's also the how. The specification defines the scope of work, but, looking at the source material, it goes much deeper than just build a 50-story tower. It sets the rules for how you manage that building process.
I was looking at the list of disciplines covered here, and the variety is honestly wild. It's not just civil and infrastructure or, buildings.
No, it covers the invisible stuff too.
Exactly. The first thing on the list isn't even physical, it's construction management.
Right. And that's huge. That's the rule book for how the site is run, who reports to whom, how is information handled.
And then things like HSE health, safety and environment and quality control, those aren't bricks and mortar, but they seem to take up a huge amount of space.
Because in a FIDIC contract, safety isn't a suggestion, it's a specified requirement. If you don't follow the safety spec, you are in breach just as much as if you use the wrong kind of cement.
And the engineer can actually stop the work.
They can stop the work, yeah, if you violate the HSE specs.
And then you get into the really heavy technical stuff, the source lists, structural steel, piping, electrical and instrumentation.
And even process automation. That really shows the range, doesn't it? You go from site preparation, which is basically bulldozers pushing dirt around, all the way to high-level coding for factory robots.
Wow. And it also includes things like painting and insulation and testing.
The whole life cycle of the build.
So within this specification folder, is it just one big, long document?
Usually no. To keep it organized, it's split into 3 layers. You have your general specifications, that's the big picture, the management stuff, the safety rules.
Okay.
Then technical specifications, that's the nitty-gritty engineering.
And then the third layer.
Material specification.
Which I assume is where they tell you exactly what ingredients to use.
Precisely. It ensures the materials meet the quality standards. It stops a contractor from buying cheap, substandard steel just to save a few bucks. The spec says, no, you must use grade X steel. End of story.
Okay, so folder 1 is the words. Folder 2 has to be the pictures, the drawings.
Visualizing the design. This is what most people think of when they imagine a construction site. Big rolls of paper, people pointing at blue lines.
But I noticed something tricky in the sources here. We need to be very specific about what actually counts as a drawing in this folder, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a critical distinction. In the FIDI Red Book, drawings includes very specific things. General arrangement drawings, your design or construction drawings, details, and typicals.
And interface coordination drawings. I love that term.
It sounds bureaucratic, but it's absolutely vital. That's for when the plumber needs to know where the electrician is putting their wires.
Right. So you don't have a water pipe and a high voltage cable trying to occupy the exact same space in a wall.
Exactly. But, and this is where it gets fascinating, there's a huge list of things that look like drawings but are explicitly excluded from this folder.
This was the aha moment for me. Because to a layperson, a blueprint is a blueprint. But the source material says, not included, are contractor's documents.
Correct. And this is a huge legal distinction.
So things like Contractors' shop drawings, lifting plans, fabrication drawings,
Mm.
these don't live in the main drawings folder.
No, and here's why. The drawings folder represents the employer's design. The contractor's documents, like shop drawings or method statements, are generated by the builder to show how they're going to execute that design.
Okay, let me see if I've got this. If I'm the client, I give you a design drawing that says, I want a steel beam right here. That's folder 2. Then you, the builder, create a separate shop drawing that tells your factory how to actually cut and weld that specific beam. That is not folder 2.
Exactly, that is a contractor's document.
Right.
And it's all about liability. If the beam is wrong because the design drawing was wrong, that's my fault as the client.
Yeah.
If the design was right but your shop drawing was wrong, that's on you.
That makes so much sense. It separates the intent from the execution.
Think about lifting plans, too.
That's the crane stuff,
Right. How you are going to strap a heavy air conditioning unit to a crane and lift it 30 stories up. The architect doesn't design that. The contractor has to figure that out. So it's their document, not a design drawing.
Okay, let's move to folder 3. The schedules. Now, when I hear schedule, I think of time. But looking at the source, this seems to be where all the lists live.
It's the data backbone of the contract, really. And yes, the scheduled key dates is in there, so time is one part, but it's only one of about 15 distinct items.
15. Okay, let's break them down. It seems like they fall into 2 big buckets. Money,
Logistics. That's a good way to split it. On the money side, you have the most famous document in construction, the bill of quantities, the BOQ.
the shopping list.
Essentially, yeah. It's the itemized list of every single thing expected on the job with a price next to it.
And associated with that, you have the contract price breakdown.
Right. And then you get schedules for different types of costs. You'll have one for lump sums, one for provisional sums, and one for unit prices.
We're definitely going to do a deep dive on what those pricing terms actually mean a bit later, because that seems like it could change the whole dynamic of a project.
Oh, it completely changes the risk profile, yes. And the money section also includes the payment schedule when you get paid and the rates for variations.
Which is basically the menu of prices for when things
change, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, you want an extra wall. Here's the rate for that. It prevents arguments later.
Okay, but then you have the other schedules, the non-money stuff.
Just as vital, you have the key personnel schedule.
The people list.
Yes, you are legally promising that specific experts will be on the job.
So you can't win the contract by promising the A-team and then just swap them out for the
interns once the project starts,
Yeah.
exactly. Then you have the major equipment schedule, the machinery.
I saw interface matrices in there. That sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It sounds complex, but it's just a grid showing who's responsible for what. It's for coordination.
I build the pipe up to point A. You start at point A. The matrix defines point A.
And then things like test and inspection schedules and the insurance schedule. It really is just a folder full of lists that keep the project honest.
It defines the constraints. It defines the units of measurement. It makes sure that when we both say 1 meter, we're measuring it the same way.
Okay, folder 4. This one feels like a shift in perspective, the contractor's proposal.
It is. The first 3 folders were mostly about what the employer wants. Here is my dream building. This folder is the contractor saying, okay, here is how I promise to do it.
And it starts with the form of tender, the formal offer. The I agree to build this for X amount of money document, basically. But it's backed up by the contractor's price due documents and a whole suite of operational plans.
I see outline construction plan and preliminary program here.
This is the strategy. The contractor's showing their hand. We'll start the foundation in March. We'll pour concrete in April, that kind of thing.
And key method statements. So this is the text version of here is how we'll actually build it.
Correct. And notice the resource proposals. Resource and staffing proposals and plant and equipment proposals.
This links back to the schedules, doesn't it?
It does. They are committing to having, say, 50 workers and 3 cranes on site. If they only show up with 10 workers and a shovel, they're contradicting this folder. The engineer can look at folder 4 and say, you promised 50 people, where are they?
There's also a lot of governance stuff here. Quality system, HSE plan, management systems.
This is the trust but verify part. It's not enough to just say, we'll be safe. You have to submit the system you'll use. You have to prove you have a plan.
And finally, the fine print. Clarifications and qualifications.
The yes but section. We will build your building, but we clarify that we aren't responsible for the existing pollution or something like that.
Got it. Okay, now we arrive at folder 5. The other documents. Be honest, is this the junk drawer?
It is absolutely not the junk drawer. I would argue this folder contains some of the biggest risks in the entire contract.
Really? Why is that?
Because the first 4 folders are about the theoretical building. This folder contains the context, the constraints of the real world. I mean, look at the list. Site investigation reports, geotechnical baseline reports, topographical surveys.
Oh, okay. This is the reality of the actual dirt you're building on.
Exactly. You can have the most beautiful drawings in folder 2, perfect logic. But if the geotechnical baseline report in folder 5 says the ground is basically swamp mud and you didn't read it, your building is going to sink, and it's your fault.
That's a terrifying thought.
Sure.
So the other documents are the reality check.
Yes. And it also has existing services records. That's where the power lines and gas pipes are buried.
Ignore those, and you've got an explosion on day 1.
It also seems to hold the rules of engagement. I see employers' policies and regulations, employer site rules, and site access and security protocols.
Oof. Imagine you win the contract, but you didn't notice the site access protocol says you can only bring trucks in between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m.
Suddenly, your entire logistics plan from folder 4 is garbage, all because you ignored folder 5.
And the legal stuff, too. Authority requirements like permits, framework agreements, collateral warranties. It's the whole web the project sits inside.
It is the whole web.
Okay, so that's the box. 5 folders. Scope, drawings, schedules, proposal, and context. But I want to circle back to something we touched on in folder 3, the money. The source has a great breakdown of the contract price structure.
It does, and the first thing to notice is that it's usually a mix. In the example provided, the currency is euro, but the methods of pricing vary line by line.
Right, so first up, lump sums. These are fixed costs, aren't they?
Yes. The source lists things like mobilization, site establishment, general HSE, and site management as lump sums.
So I will set up my trailers and fences for 50,000 euros, and that's it.
Exactly. Regardless of how long it takes, that's the price. The contractor takes the risk. If they're efficient, they make more margin. If they're slow, they lose money.
Then you have provisional sums. I always find this term a bit confusing.
Think of it as an allowance, a budget for something uncertain. The source lists site staff and temporary facilities here. It means we think it'll cost this much, but we'll settle the actual bill later based on what really happens.
And interestingly, the total contract price itself is often framed as a provisional sum.
Because until all the work is actually measured and done, the total price is still just an estimate.
Okay, and then the meat and potatoes, unit rates.
This is for the actual building blocks, civil works, buildings, structural steel. These are paid by the unit.
So per cubic meter of concrete or per ton of steel.
Correct. But here's where it gets really interesting, and the source material is very specific. The anatomy of a unit rate. What actually goes into that single number?
I assume it's the cost of the material plus the person installing it.
It is, but it's much more. The source explicitly breaks it down. It includes labor, materials, and plant equipment. Those are your direct costs.
Okay, makes sense.
But it also includes site overheads, head office overheads, and profit.
Wait, so my head office rent and my profit margin are sort of hidden inside the price of the concrete.
Distributed is the word. They are baked right into the rate. And this is where the engineer comes back in. There's a specific constraint in the source that says the engineer does not remeasure overheads separately.
What does that mean in practice?
Well, let's say your unit rate for concrete is 100 euros. Maybe 80 euros is the direct cost, and 20 euros is your overhead and profit.
Okay, with you so far.
And you plan to pour 1,000 cubic meters. So you're expecting to recover 20,000 euros in overheads from that work. But what if the design changes and you only end up pouring 500 meters? You only get paid for 500, which means you only recover half of your overheads. You can't then go to the engineer and say, hey, my head office electric bill is still the same. Can you reimburse me?
Because the overhead was attached to the volume.
Exactly. The engineer will just point to the contract and say, sorry, I don't remeasure overheads.
That is a massive risk for the contractor. If the amount of work drops, their ability to pay their own bills drops.
Precisely. That's why the bill of quantities in folder 3 is so incredibly sensitive.
And finally, what about when things do change? The rates for variations?
This is the menu for Plan B. The source outlines what's normally in there. You'll have normal time rates for labor, but also overtime rates.
Crucial if the schedule slips and you need people working nights.
Construction equipment day rates, and then markup percentages for when the contractor has to go out and procure materials or services that weren't in the plan.
So if the owner suddenly says, I want gold-plated faucets, and they weren't in the original plan,
the contractor buys them and adds the pre-agreed markup percentage. It stops you from arguing about how much profit is fair in the middle of a crisis.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from high-level specifications all the way down to the tiny profit margin inside a cubic meter of concrete.
I think the big takeaway is structure. A successful project isn't just about good engineering, it's about everyone understanding which folder the information lives in.
It prevents the chaos.
It does. If you know the difference between a drawing, which is the design, and a contractor's document, which is the plan, you avoid a massive amount of confusion and argument.
And if you understand that the site rules in Folder 5 can completely shut down your logistics plan from Folder 4, you plan better from the start.
Exactly. The FIDIC Red Book isn't just a contract. It's a system for managing complexity. It forces you to categorize every piece of information so that when problems happen, and they always do, you know exactly where to look for the answer.
I want to leave the listener with one final thought, something that really stuck out to me about that Other Documents folder. We spend so much time obsessing over the drawings and the specs. We look at the pretty pictures and the technical data because they feel like the real work.
We do. They're the tangible parts of the build.
But how often is a multi-million-euro project completely derailed? Not because the design was bad, but because someone just ignored the geotechnical baseline report or the employer site rules hidden in the back of the contract.
More often than you would think, the silent documents often shout the loudest when things go wrong.
So next time you see a construction site, don't just look at the cranes. Imagine that box. And imagine the 5 folders keeping all that chaos in order.
And maybe check folder 5 first.
Good advice. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
A pleasure.
See you next time.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.